It's 6 a.m., not p.m. You slept through the alarm again. Now forget about the breakfast and the token for the direct passage to your workspace. Don't even think about it. And that traffic? Life can't become worse anymore. Not so fast. You may not be aware of the nearing asteroid big enough to easily cross the stratosphere. What should you be more stressed about? A missed alarm, carrying a snoring intestine, a boiling head, or a nearing asteroid? The answer may seem obvious, but not so obvious. And whatever it is, we are all going to encounter the same stressful situations in life. Why doesn't it create the same impact in all? How some heads remain cool. By knowingly or unknowingly, those heads are handling this well. What are all the stress? A project deadline, progress report, traffic, a major health threat, lack of life sustenance, losing a competition, changing home, giving a public talk, or an asteroid overhead. Stress has become a buzzword in representing a psychological state. But this was the term used to represent the strain placed on any physical object by mechanical force. But an experiment conducted by a curious Hungarian scientist gave this a place in pages of medical books as well. In 1930s, Hans Selye was practicing medicine in University of Prague Medical School. There he observed some common symptoms among the patients with various illnesses. This seems odd, because like any other medical student at that time, he had been taught that symptoms are specific to the illnesses present. These non-specific physiological responses to the illnesses present didn't make any sense then, which engrossed his mind for the upcoming few years. Years later, he threw himself into the task of identifying female sex hormones through animal studies. For this, Selye injected extracts of cow ovaries into female rats to check their responses. The effects were like enlarged adrenal gland, atrophied thymus, and peptic ulcers in all rats. Yeah, we got it. These extracts have caused these effects in rats. Case closed, submit thesis, go home. Not so fast. As has been said, all the rats got ulcer, including the control rats which wasn't injected with any of these extracts. The same non-specific physiological responses irrelevant to the differences in the insults placed on it. The very phenomenon that had been occupying his mind since his observation as a second-year medical student among the patients with various illnesses. Selye headed to find the commonality but oddity in the experiment. In fact, Selye wasn't that good at handling rats. Whenever he picked the rat, he missed it, chased it throughout the lab, only to find it trembling under some book rack. This is it. He extended the experiment by placing some rats in cold rooftops, hot basements, a revolving treadmill, and all the possible disturbing environments to prevent them from peacefully eating their food pellets and minding their own business. The findings are the same non-specific responses of enlarged adrenals, shrunk lymphatic system, ulcers, and so on. Selye started to use the term stress for these unpleasant conditions. Actually, physiologist Walter Cannon was the first person who used the word stress in a physiological context. What Selye did was to formalize the concept with two ideas. The body responds to a broad array of stresses in a similar fashion. Selye called it as general adaptation syndrome. Now we call it as stress response. These stress responses are like elevated heart rate, rise in blood pressure, temperature, sweating, fluid retention, storing energy, and so on. If stresses go on for too long, and so if the stress responses are activated for too long, it will make you sick. How does stress make us sick? Consider this brand new evolutionary example of getting chased by a lion scenario. Okay. A bear, a wolf, a dog, okay, leave it. Take this real life scenario with the probability of 0.0001 in 100. Still much better than the chase by a lion scenario. A truck. You have just parked in front of the neighbor's gate. Its handbrake fails and about to smash the gate. Now your fight or flight mode is on. You do feel your muscles tense, blood rushes into your working muscles, temperature spikes. The entire world blurs out except the truck and the gate. An acute stress response like this is all about directing the energy resources to the muscles in the front line and reducing blood flow to the regions and functions that are not in immediate need. Your brain detects the threat, which signals various body regions through neural and hormonal routes. At the end of this, the adrenal gland produces two famous hormones, epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, and glucocorticoids. The human version of this is cortisol. The opposite and the parallel nerve route running along with this is the parasympathetic nervous system, signaling calm and vegetative state of the body, the state you were in just a second before you detected the truck moving. If stress makes us sick, is it bad? No. You are seeing the truck moving, your sympathetic alarm going on, your thigh muscles are screaming for the energy which is mobilized into the bloodstream from fat and glycogen storage. And the energy usage is diverted to the working muscles from long-term construction projects such as digesting breakfast, making sperm cells, secreting growth hormone, and so on. To deliver the oxygen and the nutrients fast, blood pressure climbs up. This is achieved by water retention in kidneys, narrowing veins, and elevated heart rate and respiration rate. Arteries dilate to deliver the fuel, pupils dilate to let in more visual information, sensors, memory, and cognition sharpen to collect and analyze the regarding information. All in few seconds. All because of stress response. To know the importance of the stress response, consider you are someone with Addison's disease, the condition in which adrenal glands don't produce enough adrenaline. You see the truck moving and that's all. When you wake up, you would think you better stay down. Having a stress response is crucial to handle any sort of minor to major stresses. Now ask the question again. If stress and stress response is so beneficial, it is good, right? No. Most of the physical stresses are acute, just a momentary boost. After stopping the overridden truck, the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in and stops the overridden stress response to establish homeostasis. Homeostasis. An organism's internal state such as hydration, temperature, pH, blood pressure has to be maintained in a certain range of values for the bodily process to occur. So it evolves the physiological systems which tend to pull back the agitated values to the initial state. After saving the truck, all emergency state volunteers halt down, construction projects are resumed, homeostasis established. But what if you have to run after the truck forever to stop it? In the physical world, it is more unlikely. But humans are cerebral enough to run the stressors purely in mind, and that paves way to chronic stress. All traffic, deadlines, missed alarm scenarios, all regrets and uncertainty, all what ifs and shouldn't have scenarios. What if your blood pressure remains high and consequently it damages the capillaries and increases the risk for atherosclerosis? Mobilizing energy resources is fine to stop the truck. But running behind the truck forever makes your muscle and fat cells less sensitive to insulin and may end up in diabetes. Acute stresses enhance memory and learning, which is helpful to create precision movement, analyzing the environment, recalling what you did in a similar situation last time, and the consequences if you fail. Let the glucocorticoid for a little more time in circulation. It may weaken the synapses of your neurons of memory region. Another half of the effects is through the stunned long-term projects. Growing kids undergo traumatic stress may not attain their complete growth potential. Long-term stresses affect sex hormone secretion, ovulation, sperm production, and create all sorts of complications in reproduction. Acute stress enhances immunity, whereas chronic stress turn it down. Chronic stresses are not good at any context. But we are all facing these stressors. Not all undergoing the same stressors develop the same stress responses and health effects. Why some of us are more prone to stress? What qualities do they have which we don't? These chronic stresses are common after all. Or isn't it so common? All stressors attempt to be applied equally, but some effectors are more equal. Some effectors shield themselves from stressors. Some effectors have happened to be float on cocktail tops at the position of giving stress rather than taking. If you are a chimp, sitting in tree shade minding your own business or salivating for the hard-earned termite scoop in your hand, you are just a second away from receiving a butt kick and the food gets grabbed by the dominant male of the tribe. Being in bottom of the ladder is definitely stressful if you are a chimp. In some context. What sort of? It's based on the nature of the dominance in that particular subgroup. It's based on the dominance is being enforced by exposing canines or by arranging a termite party. It's based on the stability of the group. If there is a new rival or food shortage, the alpha's bloodstream is going to be filled with glucocorticoids, not the low-ranking individuals. Okay, non-human primates have so much complexity in stress to hierarchy relationship, then one must guess our case should be more complex. What about humans? Humans have ranks, but it fluctuates for the context. Holding a higher position in work would not necessarily make one more dominant in his office badminton team. But this one variable makes it more simple. Our very innovation of stratification based on socioeconomic status ruthlessly breaks all context. Living near a sewage in a crowded place is stressful. But if it happened to be situated near a star hotel, it's really stressful. Nancy Adler of University of California conducted a study in which, independent of absolute wealth, participants were asked about their subjective socioeconomic status by showing a ladder with 10 rungs and making them to indicate their subjective position. Impressively, participants' subjective wealth and health relationship was a better predictor than the actual wealth was. Feeling poor is more stressful than being poor. Even after controlling for the healthcare accessibility, this effect persists. In corporate hierarchy, contrast to the general belief of people on the higher position face more stress-related diseases, it's actually people on the middle management who undergoes more stress because they are dealing with the killer combination of high demand and less autonomy over the work. In other words, less control. Take some rats, give them mild frequent electric shocks, which will develop the stress-related diseases. Now train them to use a lever that reduces the frequency of shocks. Now split them into two groups. Let one group continue to usage of the lever and take the lever out of the other group. Give the shock again to the same amount for both groups. The one with the lever develop less stress response, even though the shocking system is disconnected from the lever. The control or the belief that you have the control over the situation reduces the stress. But having the control over the situation is not always good too. Imagine the asteroid is nearing and you are provided with two keys that decides the trajectory of the rocket with a missile to blast the asteroid before it enters the atmosphere. The future of the Earth is in your hand, literally. Such level of control is devastating. It's not too much or too little control of anything which is less stressful. Like many other aspects of the physical world, the gray spot is the sweet spot. Give the rats electric shocks, but this time ring a warning bell a few seconds before so that rats can anticipate the painful stimulus. Results in less stress response. Here the situation is clear that the rat get information exactly about when it can relax. One human example. During Nazis' Blitzkrieg bombing of England, London was hit every night like clockwork. In the suburbs, the bombings were more sporadic, occurring perhaps once a week. There was a huge rise of stress-related diseases overall. Who got more? The suburban population. Less predictability is sometimes worse than more stressor. The reason behind the phrase "2 more rep feels good" is when the stressor is going to be exactly get over. Predictability has limitations too. Too little information is worse than zero information. Knowing the asteroid is going to hit in another few months but not sure when is worse than being unaware of it. Too much predictability of what's going to happen every next second is called boredom. We need right amount of stimulus, right actionable amount of predictability. There had been an understanding about the link between the people with cardiac diseases and certain traits. Competitiveness, time pressureness, impatience, and hostility. Cardiologists Meyer Friedman and Ray Rosenman named the people with these qualities as type A people. Several studies suggested that it is hostility that plays the major role in stress-related diseases, among others. Reanalysis of original type A data further showed that it is not just hostility or anger beneath the surface of stress-related diseases, but the tendency or the lack of opportunity to not be able to express it. This brings us to the second half of understanding how some of us are handling stress well. One must have the privilege of staying away from the stressors through carrying good genes, non-abusive childhood, a place on top of the ladder, control and predictability over the situation, and the temperament to handle it. But as we know, this sort of perfection is unattainable by majority population, and the only lever handed over to us is the ability to cope with the stressors. And the ones who handle the stress well are the ones who handle these levers well, knowingly or unknowingly. Shock the same rat. Okay, another rat. Shock this another rat and keep a wooden piece nearby. Allow the rat to gnaw it after the shock. It reduces the glucocorticoid level immediately. Similar to us hitting a random wall for no reason when we are frustrated. Replace the wood with another rat and now the stressed rat won't treat it any way different than the wooden piece. Displacement aggression. Humans, we rarely bite someone's ear when we are frustrated. We have some formal versions of displacement aggression. If you don't like some employee who has to report to you at work, rather than biting them, you can extend the working hours, schedule late night meetings, or hold on the hike. Simply, you can be stress-free by giving it to someone below you. Bad model, bad moral. Don't do that. We have better alternatives. Stress the rat. Now replace this random rat with a known rat like the rat's mom. After the shock, let the rat to run to its mom and cry on its shoulder. Its stress response goes way down. If one outlet works 10, if not 100 times better than others, that is social support. This is an incident faced by Dr. Robert Sapolsky, neuroscientist, primatologist, and author of the book Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. He was studying social hierarchy and its effects on stress-related diseases among baboons. During the study, the animals happened to be fed on the waste foods from a nearby tourist lodge. In a few days, half of the males of the group died of tuberculosis by eating the contaminated food. This loss shattered Robert, but he made a curious observation. Those are not some random males who die. Those are alphas. violent, aggressive, less socialized animals who bullied someone below in hierarchy to save their position. The animals with high blood glucocorticoid levels and horrible immune system. The remaining were good guys who are less aggressive and more social. Years later, the entire group was transformed into something utopian, with more social affiliation and less stress-related issues.
Don't bite somebody because you're having a bad day. Don't displace on them in any sort of manner. And one of the greatest forms of sociality is giving rather than receiving. If they're able to, in one generation, transform what are supposed to be textbook social systems, sort of engraved in stone, we don't have an excuse when we say there's certain inevitabilities about human social systems.
When there is a perceptual failure of having control over the situation, we seek external locus of control. Religious people have been reported world over of being less depressed than atheists. This is probably the effect of religious people having the opportunity of feeling themselves as being part of a big community and atheists being minority in most of the countries. But controlled for that, the very purpose of God is to serve the meaning for the conditions human face, both positive and negative. Finding the cause makes us feel having more control over the situation, as we know, which is a primary stress mitigating factor. So we are left out with two options when the asteroid overhead. Give up on life and be stressed about the asteroid, or have hope in the divine power, close your eyes, be stress-free until the asteroid hits. Things may not fall in place all the time. Situation may exceed our abilities and expectations. Eventually, we only would be left out with expressing what it does to you. We cry, laugh, practice arts, play musical instruments, create poems, travel, take pictures and post it on social media. We find means of expressing ourselves one way or another. Expressions are the way of choosing flavors for our lives. In the same context, suppressed are those who have the necessity of expressing more. They are the ones who choke to not utter a word. Suppressing expressions may be stressful for those who think it's a noble act, but more stressful for the ones who know it's silly but only have to suppress it just because of the fact of being surrounded by the people who believe it is noble. Unfortunately, most of our norms are constructed by these believers of noble suppressions, the very struggle of unconventionals. But our ability of emotional regulations through cognitive means evolved for the reason of positioning ourselves in this increasingly complex social structure. Find the balance between expressions and its suppressions and position yourself right in the society. Decide to be more expressive and label yourself as a rebel or antisocial or uncultured or crazy. Move towards a more suppressive style and fit perfectly to the crowd, and be prepared to die of some metabolic disease by your middle age. Sometimes expressing without a cognitive filter will not make a constructive society though. After all, a drunken brawl is not the way to express your stressful condition. We have better, famous alternatives. Cross-stressor adaptation hypothesis postulates that the adaptations occur through voluntary regular exercises that can buffer the adverse responses of psychological stresses as well. It may be possible since stress responses are not so specific while stressors differ. However, more evidences are needed to prove this hypothesis. Also, most of the studies are subjective and retrospective, where participants needed to recall their exercise habits, and the heterogeneity of laboratory stressor used makes it difficult to determine the efficacy of interventions. Overall, physical exercise has been documented to improve general stress response elements such as heart rate variability, and blood pressure, which helps to attenuate the negative consequences of chronically activated stress response. Many forms of meditations are associated with increasing mindfulness, self-compassion, exposure, metacognition, attention, and decreasing rumination. All of these traits help to modify one's mental state when exposed to real stressors. It is known to be responsible for structural and functional changes in the brain regions involved in emotional regulation such as prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, and amygdala. These are the regions affected by chronic exposure of stress hormones. Benefits start to show up after daily 20 to 25 minutes of meditation for 8 weeks minimum. But just like any other lifestyle behavioral studies, meditation studies are self-reported and having conforms between cause and effect. Also, something like meditation should be cultivated as a skill through years of practice, not an easy model to study in short-term laboratory experiments. Not all the stresses are same in magnitude. Exercises, breathing practices, stretches, massages, hot showers are fine, but a war refugee can't be advised to attend a weekend meditation retreat to overcome the trauma. Stressors which subject to simple, handy stress management techniques are mostly daily, moderate, sustained stressors. Something like a missed alarm. But if the stressor gets big, Obviously, missing an alarm or breakfast is way less stressful than an asteroid. We feel it as so intuitional to what to feel stressed about. But imagine a city where asteroid is not so rare an occurrence, where all of us are provided with a shielded subway to go out. But there is a population issue. Only the first comers get the ticket to enter the subway. There, asteroid is not a big stressor, but missing alarm is. A little stressor's connectivity to the big stressor may make it to be perceived as big stressor. Some of us who are all less stressed may be the ones who fail to see this connectivity. These are the people who believe they are the masters of their situations. These are the people who doesn't look into the next cabin or what is happening in some third world country. They celebrate movie stars, vote for sociopaths. Their problems are easily solvable by a morning motivational post or carpe diem quote. Their world is simple and well defined. And they are stressors too. Ignorance is pure bliss. Silly, but it works. It works until the real stressor hits. Stressors are not bad after all. In fact, stressors lead to adaptations, which make us strong and resilient. But dosage decides to kill or to feed. Any big stressor is a killer. We call it as trauma, injury, extinction. Anything prolonged is bad too. We call it as depression, anxiety, overtraining, fatigue, and burnout. The in-betweens are qualified stressors, which allows to adapt. Keep it moderate and transient with enough time to recover and replenish and come back stronger. But even the stressors are not favorable like this. To an extent, our perception towards the stressor would make it for our own good. This is the perception of I don't care how big the challenge is, I am stronger than that. Of course, this mindset is not easy. This mindset requires two expanded mental states which dominates the meditation practice. Acceptance of the condition on its own color. It's even better if you could be able to see the good side of it. And detachment, the ability to analyze the situation non-judgmentally and initiate the action, seeing the broader perspective. When the real stressor hits, the practice of leaving the emotional baggage behind and zooming out to find the insignificance of the action may be a good strategy than lock yourself into it. After all, every stressors are insignificant after its reach of radar. But we poor closed biological systems can be act upon very narrow values of it. So we are handicapped with the absolute magnitude of stressors while possessing these huge wings of perception to fly over it. The stress-free world. Is it possible? No. We should ask, is it a necessity? Stress is the root of change. The conversation between the lives and environment, unitary determinant of evolution. Because of that, it is ineradicable. If we ever attempt to create a world where the stress is not so stressful, that the freedom of butterflies has to be ensured. If not, at least their wings should not be broken while captured. That the flowers has to be immortal. If not, at least their petals has to be preserved. That no one should stand on someone's head, or at least it has to be inclusive of all. The stress may still perpetuate, but it should come along with outlets, where expressions has to be understood or at least received and respected. There, possibly, we can be stress-free.